Hey all you cats and chicks out there, let's shake things up a bit. You know what people like? Lists. Specifically countdown lists that use arbitrary measures to catalog items of quality into a sequential order. I want in on this racket, and I have just the kind of sequential countdown befitting my status as an amateur anime historian. I've seen lists that have ranked the best years in movies, music, and video games, but hardly ever anime. Anime is as big and as influential as those art forms with just as long a history as them. So, why not make a list of the top 25 years that were total game changers for the medium? Now, a little preamble. For my ranking, I am judging by two criteria. One is historical impact, judging the years by how much the anime landscape changed in that time. This could be through notable anime releases themselves, or outside factors that affected the industry at large. Either way, the anime landscape at the start of the year must be completely different by the end of it. Second is overall quality. These are the years that give us the best the world of anime has to offer. The years where the anime is in high quality, high quantity, and high diversity. The kind of years that demand revisitation. Making this list was a lot harder than you would think. I had to make a lot of difficult cuts, even with having 25 slots to work with. You may not even like some of my choices, but if you're mad and want me to hear about it, that's what the comment section below is for. Besides, I'm the possum with a YouTube channel, so I'm right anyways. So, without further delay, let's begin the count. KYOTO Video is counting down the top 25 best years in anime.
KYOTO Video.
Number 25, 1963. What better way to start the list than at the beginning? Well, okay, 1963 isn't actually the beginning of anime. Astro Boy was certainly not the first anime ever produced. Hell, it wasn't even the first anime to air on television. But we recognize Astro Boy, and by extension the year of its debut, 1963, as the beginning because it's where the anime landscape as we know it began. Through manga legend Osamu Tezuka's newly founded Mushi Productions, Astro Boy set the template for the modern television anime series, having the protagonist be a young wide-eyed child gifted with out-of-this-world powers, having their daily struggle come from wanting to do the right thing, and supplementing production costs and broadcast rates through lots and lots of merchandising. It was even the first anime to be sold overseas to America, with NBC, through producer Fred Ladd, nabbing the broadcast rights for a cool $2 million that very same year. Already, the anime industry was going global. But Astro Boy isn't the only noteworthy anime of 1963. TCJ's Gigantor became the example of the giant robot series of anime. Eighth Man, also by TCJ, invented the transforming action hero genre of anime while also being the first with an adult protagonist, and Hermit Village, also by TCJ, pioneered late-night anime with a bawdy cartoon made specifically for grown-ups only. On the cinematic side, Studio Toei Animation released The Little Prince and the Eight-Headed Dragon, a highly regarded film with bold art direction that wowed audiences and was the breakout job for legendary animator Yasuo Otsuka. 1963 was also the year Toei first stepped into the realm of TV with Wolf Boy Ken, itself being the training ground for future titans Isao Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki. The only reason why such a foundational year isn't higher up on the list is simply because this is the primordial soup for anime. You can only appreciate most of these titles these days if you go in with a historian's eye. Regardless, every story needs beginning, and 1963 proved that the history of modern anime began with a bang. Number 24, 2008.
Who wants the first bullet up the ass?
2008 is a shake-up year if there ever was one. Specifically, it was the year where the anime economy completely crashed, in America at least. But it was still a huge deal. The fallout of the Great Recession caused physical media sales on anime DVDs to greatly constrict, causing once stalwart companies like ADV, Central Park Media, and Geneon to go belly up, while other companies like Bandai pulled out of the market altogether. Anime also began vanishing from American television airwaves, with Cartoon Network's vaunted Toonami block coming to a sad end. It was so bad that it prompted a lot of people to ask, is this the end for the anime industry? The answer was a resounding no. Over in its home country, anime was actually still doing quite well. Popular manga continued getting praiseworthy adaptations, from the action-packed Soul Eater to the romantic Skip Beat to the Fujoshi fan service-fueled Black Butler. Light novel adaptations also reigned supreme with numerous diverse frontrunners, whether it was the thrilling A Certain Magical Index, the calming Spice and Wolf, or the tsundere-driven Toradora. There was something for everyone's taste. And if neither of those tickled your fancy, you had trashy fanservice series like Rosario Vampire or To Love Ru. For the artsy crowd, Kaiba. Or for the gritty adult crowd, you had Nimmo-san. Or if you just needed something completely different, you had Sayo Yamamoto's directorial debut, Michiko and Hatchin. Or if you watched Clannad last year, you had the heart-wrenching sequel Clannad After Story. Or if none of those are what you're looking for, or if you have kids, Studio Ghibli had your back with the release of Hayao Miyazaki's Ponyo. 2008 really did show that, despite overseas turmoil, the anime industry still thrived. But what keeps it from going any further up our list is that it's still a low point for the industry at large. Even if times were better than we thought, it showed that the anime would still have to make big changes going forward.
Bang.
Number 23, 1972. Oh, I can hear the old Taku yelling at me now. Like 1963, 9 years before, 1972 is recognized as an integral foundational year for the world of anime, and that all rests on the shoulders of 3 big anime titles released that year. The first being Toei's Devilman. Based off of a highly influential manga from Go Nagai, it proved to really strike a chord with viewers even in its heavily toned down form, introducing audiences to anime's archetypical brooding anti-hero Akira Fudo, and talking frankly about heavy subject matter like the darkness that lurks in all humanity's hearts. The second, another Go Nagai adaptation from Toei, was Mazinger Z. With its innovation being based around a giant robot piloted by a human within, it spawned the modern mecha genre and ushered a commercial boom driven by lots and lots of plastic merchandise. And finally, there's Tatsunoko Productions' Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, the anime series that helped establish the 5-man superhero team standard that would influence numerous Japan-made media for decades to come. And even outside those 3 colossi, you had TMS's long-running kooky comedy series The Gutsy Frog, as well as their short film capitalizing on the panda craze, Pandako Panda, the film that would become the starting template for many Hayao Miyazaki films. So why so low? Well, outside of the titles I mentioned, a lot of 1972's anime is very of its time and place. I don't think many people these days, both in Japan and abroad, would get much out of an animated documentary about the Japanese men's volleyball team competing in the Munich Olympics. But still, 1972's an important year, and not having it would be a glaring omission for the top 25 greatest years in anime. Number 22, 1989. 1989 deserves to be remembered for its failures as much as its successes. First, the bad. It becomes very apparent that the golden age of anime film brought on by the bubble economy is coming to a sticky end, with the high-profile failures of TMS's long-in-development Little Nemo and Yoshikazu Yasuhiko's passion project Venus Wars. And the OVA realm, while not struggling, is getting really weird, releasing titles like Cypher the Video, Cybernetics Guardian, and the infamous Angel Cop.
The name's Angel, but don't let that fool you. I can be a bitch when I want to.
Oh, and we can't forget the Tsutomu Miyazaki murders that stirred up a moral panic over the otaku culture. Now the good. Studio Ghibli was keeping their 80s hot streak alive with the release of the magical girl coming-of-age story Kiki's Delivery Service. AIC and Artmic launched Kenichi Sonoda's awesomely violent ode to guns and cars Riding Bean, and Yoshiyuki Tomino and Sunrise found great acclaim in the OVA sphere by telling a rarely seen side of the One-Year War with Mobile Suit Gundam 80 War in the Pocket. But the real hotness came from TV. Studio Dean released their celebrated adaptation of Rumiko Takahashi's gender-bending comedy Ranma 1/2. Popular mech OVA series Pat Labor got its own TV series telling the everyday foibles of the SV2 just in time for their big blockbuster movie as well. And, most importantly, 1989 saw the television debut of Dragon Ball Z, the sequel series that would soon surpass its original series and become a global phenomenon, to the point that it may be bigger than anime itself. As for the reason behind its position on the list, 1989 is a changeover year. The old world is dying and the new one is struggling to be born. And even if we got Goku on our side, the high-profile failures of this year all but signals the anime landscape is entering a doldrums period. But still, the presence of Goku alone is enough to earn 1989 a spot on this list. Number 21, 1992.
With the name of the moon, I'll punish you!
So about that doldrums period I mentioned in the last part, it ends right here. 1992 is where the anime industry has shaken off the last bit of 80s dust and has entered the 90s. And while the economy of the decade is far less kind than the previous decades, they're still making it work. In the world of film, Hayao Miyazaki releases Porco Rosso, a departure from the Ghibli formula, telling a grown-up story about flawed grown-ups being the last romantic figures in increasingly unromantic times. In the world of TV, the magical girl genre is reinvented through Toei's adaptation of Naoko Takeuchi's Sailor Moon, transforming the archetype from aspirational figures to superheroines fighting the forces of evil. Pierrot's adaptation of Yoshihiro Togashi's Yu Yu Hakusho raised the bar for the battle shonen genre with its depiction of complex morality and character-driven fight scenes. And TV Asahi introduced the viewing public to the buttocks of a very rude kindergartner named Shin-chan. And for the world of the OVA, it had found its second wind. It was there the Macross franchise first expanded with Macross 2. It gave us a diverse slate of new franchises, from the romantic video girl Ai to the chaotic all-purpose cultural cat girl Nuku Nuku. It introduced the anime world to a memorable cast of cute alien girls with Tenchi Muyo, and it was the starting point to Yasuhiro Imagawa's decade-spanning epic tribute to Mitsuteru Yokoyama, Giant Robo, The Day the Earth Stood Still. But it was merely the beginning for anime in the 90s, which is why it's not higher on the list. If you can believe it, there's bigger years down the line. But hey, 21 is not a bad place for a year like 1992 on our list. Number 20. 2020. Spoiler warning, this will be the most recent year on this list. But for good reason. 2020 is a year that we are currently living in the shadow of in the anime world. It really began with a bang with its winter season being full of standout titles. You had Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, Science Saru's ode to the passionate struggle that goes into creating art you are proud of. Dolga Kobo's Asteroid in Love, which delved into what makes geology and astronomy complementary fields. Mappa's Dorohedoro bringing hardcore post-apocalyptic violence back to screens. And Passione's interspecies reviewers detailing the foibles that comes with intercourse with hot, sexy monster girls. Outside of that, there was Trigger's brand new Animal, showing off the plight of beastmen in an alternate urban Tokyo, and Telecom's Tower of God, showing the anime industry entering a new frontier in adapting Korean manhwa. it was also the year the long-awaited continuations of hit anime like Re:Zero, Haikyuu, and Attack on Titan hit airwaves, and the anime industry found a new use for cinemas by continuing the story of series through standalone films, with the breakout success of Demon Slayer's Mugen Train, the highest-grossing movie of the year. More importantly, with the start of the pandemic that year, the lockdowns allowed more people to explore the realm of anime and see what it had to offer, ushering forth an entire new generation of fans and making the medium more globally popular than it had ever been before, as seen with the success of the biggest release that year, MAPPA's Jujutsu Kaisen. What keeps this year from going higher is its recency. We don't have the full picture of what these innovations have done for the industry. It's actually looking to be not so good in the long run, to be honest. But 2020 has earned its spot on this list because the anime industry wouldn't be where it is today without it, whether we like it or not. Number 19, 1969.
爆弾だ。とうとうやってきた。
The entire decade of the 1960s for anime is just building the factory, studios forming and getting their foot in the door to get a slice of that sweet merchandising pie. This knowledge makes 1969 noteworthy as it's the year where the modern anime industry finally comes into its own. By that point, the industry had fully switched to color, with the comedy series Umeboshi Denka being one of the last to air in full black and white. Studios also started trusting animators more and having their vision dictate the style of the film rather than having to follow set standards. This would lead to immensely successful and influential films such as The Wonderful World of Puss in Boots and Flying Ship Phantom. Anime was also breaking new ground by debuting soon-to-be popular franchises, like the long-running Sazai-san, the first Moomin anime, and the influential magical girl series The Secret of Ako-chan. The nascent sports genre of anime in particular shone bright this year, with Tokyo Movies' Star of the Giant movies, Toei's Tiger Mask framing the sports anime as a heroic journey, and Attack No. 1 proving to the world that the intense drama of sports wasn't just for boys. 1969 is also the year that hints at anime's future, with pilot films for Lupin III, Ashita no Joe, and Heidi all releasing that year. More importantly, 1969 was the year anime really began to mature, both figuratively and literally. Mushi Pro's adaptation of Tezuka's Dororo was a pioneering work of dark fantasy mixed with Jiraigeki. Tezuka also spearheaded the film 1001 Nights, the first anime movie aimed strictly at an adult audience. The first in a trilogy of films, it proved to be a massive domestic hit with its psychedelic animation style, mature themes, and rock and roll soundtrack. It showed the great potential of what the anime medium can really do. It being more of a step in the grand evolution of anime kinda keeps it from rising any higher than number 19 on our list. But 1969 will always be immortalized as an important evolutionary step. And that's pretty nice. Number 18, 1997.
Pikachu!
The word I would use to describe the year 1997 would be interesting. It may not seem like a particularly strong year, what with a lot of middling titles on TV and the beginning of the end for the OVA format, but this year's cream of the crop rises to the top and signals that the industry's future is going to be in some strange new frontiers. That year saw the debut of Revolutionary Girl Utena, the incredibly experimental shoujo title where the avant-garde direction and surrealistic storytelling of director Kunihiko Ikuhara took center stage in a theatrical deconstruction of fairy tale romances. The mecha genre also got its own operatic production in the form of King of Braves Gao Gai Gar, an anime series that took the tropes from both super robot and real robot genres of the previous decades and turned them all up to 11 to tell a story of courage and the unbreakable spirit of heroism. We also see the power of late-night anime take shape as networks use the early morning hours to tell bolder, mature narratives, Berserk 97 told part of Kentaro Miura's story wonderfully with a limited budget, and surreal, atmospheric science fiction could be found with Ip Man, even if it did take certain liberties with the manga. And on the movie side, they're also getting weird with it. Hayao Miyazaki breaks with the cozy Ghibli aesthetic in favor of the stirring, violent environmental fantasy tale Princess Mononoke, Satoshi Kon makes his terrifying directorial debut with the bone-chilling Perfect Blue, and Hideaki Anno delivers the mother of all mind screws with the bleak Evangelion finale, End of Evangelion. And if none of that was your bag, hey, we got the debut of the Pokemon anime, and we all know that's going to take the world by storm. 1997 is a quality over quantity year for anime, which explains why it's so low. But it just goes to show you that the anime world still has a lot more tricks up its collective sleeves. Number 17, 2016.
Oh my goodness!
So what was the anime landscape like 10 years ago? If anything, it was like 1997. A lot of forgotten frontrunners and absolute train wrecks dot the year. But once again, the cream rose to the top, to the point that you could say that this is where the pump was primed for the explosion in popularity 4 years later. The MVP for this season was Studio Bones. Kicking off the spring season with a blockbuster first season of Shonen Jump's new hotness, the superhero show My Hero Academia brought literary class with the supernatural mystery series Bungo Stray Dogs, and blew everyone's mind with the stylishly eccentric yet nevertheless heartfelt adaptation of one's Esper action comedy Mob Psycho 100. Outside of Bones, there were other success stories. The isekai genre found new life injected into it with 2 new series. White Fox's Raid Zero, starting life in another world, exchanged the innate escapism of the genre with dark fantasy that put its characters through hell and back. While Studio Dean's Konosuba God's Blessing on This Wonderful World exchanged the escapism for comedy as it follows a group of idiotic, dysfunctional adventurers. Outside that genre, you had cult favorites like Studio 30Hz's Flip Flappers and Trigger's Ultra Meta Space Patrol Luluco. But the biggest hits that year were the most quiet and introspective. Makoto Shinkai arguably reached his peak with his romantic body swap film Your Name. KYOTO Animation won much acclaim with their beautiful adaptation of Yoshitoki's Oima's psychological drama A Silent Voice, and Sayo Yamaoto and Jun Shishido broke new ground with their award-winning portrayal of a gay romance with Mappa's Yuri on Ice. Though we'll get to far bigger years for anime soon on this list, 2016 was the prelude that hinted that the medium was destined to break out globally in a massive way. Number 16, 1981. 1981 is going to be a weird one on the list because its position is dictated not by the overall quality or quantity of anime released that year, but rather a singular event. It was the year where, on February 22nd, Gundam creator Yoshiyuki Tomino made a speech to a crowd of Gundam fans declaring that the 1980s were going to be a new anime century. Not only is this speech considered to be the point where the modern idea of the otaku and otaku culture is born, but Tomino was right on the money. 1981 is where anime went through a massive evolution. The big story of that year was the arrival of Pierrot's adaptation of Rumiko Takahashi's comedy manga, Urusei Yatsura. It changed the entire rulebook on anime comedy, while also being the big break for director Mamoru Oshii and helping popularize Bishoujo culture through everyone's popular obnoxious alien, Lum. Meanwhile, theaters were alight with grand fantasy and sci-fi films, such as Madhouse's The Fantastic Adventures of Unico, Sanrio's The Sea Prince and the Fire Child, and Rentaro's Aju Galaxy Express 3-9. Toei Animation netted tons of monetary success with the oddball comedy of Dr. Slump, while also helping make original mangaka Akira Toriyama a star. Ashi Productions broke new ground with the surprisingly progressive Goshogun series, and a new genre was invented with the arrival of Miss Machiko, the ecchi genre. All while that's going on, Area seemed to be preparing for the future. A small group of animators make a short film for the convention Daikon 3. Toei releases Beast King Go Lion, which would soon become massively popular overseas under a different name, Voltron. And the industry begins to get more international with European co-productions, creating anime built specifically for the European market like Ulysses 31, Belle and Sebastian, and D'Artagnan and the Three Muskehounds. The only reason 1981 isn't higher is that it is but a seed that has yet to truly blossom. But the first year of the new anime century was no doubt always gonna wind up on this list. Now before we go any further, let us talk about some years that missed the cut. Here are some honorable mentions. 1967 is a bit of a keystone year for anime. It's where we got an anime adaptation of Japan's first superhero, Golden Bat, the character that helped inspire Astro Boy. Mushi Productions released an adaptation of the first shoujo manga, Princess Knight, being the first hit anime for the female demographic, while also being one of the earliest anime produced in color. And we have then new studio Tatsunoko producing an anime made specifically for a global audience, Mach Go Go Go, or, as most people remember it, Speed Racer. But aside from those important titles, 1967 was a pretty low-key year for anime, especially on the film front, so sadly, it didn't make the cut. 1971 is a year that seems to be empty on first glance, but actually had a lot of things going on in the background. That year saw the release and subsequent failure of Toei Animation's Animal Treasure Island. This would cause them to abandon filmmaking and focus entirely on the realm of TV. Mushi Pro released Wandering Sun, the first anime to depict the music industry and subsequently lay the groundwork for the Unborn Idol anime. And, oh yeah, Tokyo Movie Shinsho released the first anime of Monkey Punch's Lupin III, setting in motion an animated franchise that's still ongoing to this day. Sadly, 1971 missed the cut because the fruit of the 70s anime is on the tree, but it has yet to truly ripen. 1987 was actually on the shortlist for quite a bit before it got cut. For good reason too. This is the year where the newfound OVA format is really hitting its stride, pumping out hit titles like Devilman, Dangayo, Urotsuki Doji, The Plot of the Fuma Clan, and the stone cold cyberpunk anime classic, Bubblegum Crisis. Film's no slouch either, with the industry netting some serious cash and getting to make the wild experiments in animation like Robot Carnival, Twilight of the Cockroaches, Wicked City, and the filmic debut of newly christened Studio Gainax Royal Space Force, The Wings of Oniamis. And on TV, we get the debut of the super 80s action comedy City Hunter. What ultimately got this admittedly packed year cut is that there were other years in the 80s that did everything what this year did, but better. I could have easily put every year of the 80s on this list, but we gotta kill our darlings some of the time.
Don't lose your way!
Another year that was on the shortlist but ultimately got cut after some introspection. 2013 had Studio Trigger finally break into the mainstream with both the nakedly awesome Kill la Kill and the acclaimed Little Witch Academia pilot film. Shaft broke the hearts of many with Puella Magi Madoka Magica the movie Rebellion. The year is awash with quality hit anime like Hyo Annie's Free, State Light's Log Horizon, and the debut of Wit's Attack on Titan, where humanity suffered a grim reminder. Also with cult favorites like White Fox's The Devil is a Part-Timer, Tatsunoko's Gatchaman Crowds, and Silver Link's Watamote. Oh, and lest we forget, the comeback of the decade, Dragon Ball Z Battle of the Gods, bringing the franchise back and sending it into immortality. So why didn't it make the cut? Honestly, the lack of any real huge breakthroughs in the business made 2013 a year that got by on copious amounts of great titles, and there are plenty of years on this list that outdo it in that area. You'll see one in a second. That's all the honorable mentions for now. Let's get back to the list with the top 15. Number 15, 2007.
I'm me! Simon the Digger!
2007 is the platonic ideal of a good year for anime. If the industry is a machine, then this is the year where it is humming and operating at peak efficiency. It's one of the healthiest years for studios. Not only are they putting out titles that capture a variety of genres and demos, but nearly all of them are exceptional works. KYOTO Animation strikes it big with both the Seinfeldian otaku comedy Lucky Star and the heartfelt romantic drama Clannad. Shaft covers their comedy bases with a light and fluffy Hidamari sketch and the pitch black Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei, while also producing the highly experimental melodrama F: A Tale of Memories. Madhouse has a very busy year creating titles that include, but are not limited to, Claymore, Den-O Coil, and Kaiji, and the always innovating Gonzo delivered Afro Samurai, Romeo x Juliet, and the Bleak Mecha series Bokuranu. Even for studios who only had one title this year, that was enough for most of them. Bones had the supernatural thriller Darker Than Black, Satelight had the magical girl series Shugochara, Brain's Base had the Prohibition-era caper Bakano, and Gainax pierced the heavens with their drill with Gurren Lagann, the mecha adventure that took the genre to intergalactic heights. Meanwhile, established franchises continued into their new eras. Mobile Suit Gundam 00 became a popular entry point to the series with its post-9/11 themes. Magical Girl Lyrical Nanoha Strikers turned the Magical Girl series into a grand space opera, and Naruto Uzumaki came of age with the arrival of Naruto Shippuden. Meanwhile, in the film world, Makoto Shinkai caused many a tear to be shed with the star-crossed romance 5 cm per second, while Hideaki Anno began revisiting the Evangelion series with the start of the Rebuild series. Anime was massive in 2007, but, like 2013, it only got there thanks to the innovation of past years, thus, it can't rise any higher. But even with only a fraction of those titles I mentioned, it sure is a year worth remembering. Number 14, 1978. Back when I read blogs on anime history, a lot of the elder anime historians called 1978 one of the greatest years for anime, if not the greatest. Well, I apologize to those folk for only putting this year at number 14 on this list, but they're right, this is a great year for anime. 1978 is when the anime industry really starts to see their franchises less as vehicles to sell merchandise and more as the storied institutions they are. Aim for the Ace, Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, and Space Battleship Yamato all got sequel anime in responses to their continued good performances across demographics, with the Yamato franchise even getting a grand finale in the form of the epic film Farewell to Space Battleship Yamato. But there was still new series steering the industry towards new horizons. Leiji Matsumoto had an excellent year spearheading 2 popular space opera titles with equal grandiosity, Space Pirate Captain Harlock and Galaxy Express 3-9. Osamu Dezaki brought pirate adventure to the world of anime with Tokyo Movie Shinsha's adaptation of Treasure Island. Hello Kitty Company Sanrio traumatized a generation of children with the adorably tragic Ringing Bell. Yoshiyuki Tomino combined the suave spy fiction with super robot action with Invincible Steelman Daitarn 3. And Hayao Miyazaki wove a magnificent journey with the post-apocalyptic adventure series Future Boy Conan, the series that would later serve as the blueprint for his later cinematic outings. But the award for MVP in 1978 goes to a certain descendant of a gentleman thief. After getting his first series unceremoniously cancelled, everyone's favorite perverted thief came back with both a brand new series and a movie, The Mystery of Mamo, both of which became incredibly popular and incredibly profitable, proving that not only did Monkey Punch's crass humor work in animation, but also solidifying Lupin III as a true anime icon. You can see why 1978 is in the conversation for the greatest year in anime, but unfortunately, there are 13 more greater than it. Number 13, 2004.
Now how about some wheels?
I'm on it!
When I assembled this list, I really put in some thought on how these years best represented the decades they were in. The 2000s for anime was a time of experimenting technology and storytelling, and no other year in that decade embodies that like 2004. Anime films are arguably at their peak this decade, and have started catching serious attention from the film intelligentsia the world over. And while this environment does result in failures like Kazuhiro Otomo's much-hyped Steam Boy, it does give us Mamoru Oshie's postmodern sequel Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, Hayao Miyazaki's fantastical Howl's Moving Castle, Hiroyuki Imaishi's chaotic cartoon Dead Leaves, and the psychedelic breakout hit of then newcomer Masaki Yuasa, Mind Game. Over on the small screen, similar experimentation was abound. Shinichiro Watanabe followed up his jazzy space western with hip-hop flavored Jiraigeki Samurai Champloo. Gonzo delved into impressionism with their glamorous adaptation of the Count of Monte Cristo, Gankutsuo, while Madhouse dove straight into realism with both the rock and roll coming-of-age story, Beck Mongolian Chop Squad, and their adaptation of Naoki Urasawa's crime thriller, Monster. Meanwhile, Satoshi Kon took a break from movies to craft the societal-driven psychological horror Paranoia Agent. Hell, even the trashy edgelord anime got artsy with it with titles like Elfen Lied and Gantz. The popular side of anime was also having a good year as well. Pierrot released their much-watched adaptation of Tite Kubo's Bleach, acclaimed comedies like Studio Comet's School Rumble and Sunrise's Sergeant Frog were released this year, 7 Arcs broke new ground with the otaku-centric Magical Girl series, Magical Girl Lyrical Nanoha, and good old Toei Animation struck pay dirt by creating the first entry in the Magical Girl series that prints money, Pretty Cure. While the experimentation may not have been indicative of any long-term trends explaining its placement, 2004 will always be remembered as a magic moment where the anime industry is healthy enough to try new things, thus netting it a spot on this list. Number 12, 2019. 2020 may have spurred on the global explosion of anime into mainstream consciousness, but that moment really began in 2019. Because, even if we didn't have pandemic lockdowns giving people reason to explore the medium, the wheels were already in motion. The big story that year was the instant success of Ufotable's Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. An adaptation of Koyoharu Godouge's hit manga, it changed the game for shonen adaptations with its use of combining 2D and 3D animation for uniquely stylish battle sequences, ushering the anime forth into global popularity not seen since the Pokemon days. The success of Demon Slayer had come at an opportune time because anime was on the verge of breaking out globally in all sectors. Many big properties got big movies that year like One Piece, My Hero, Sound Euphonium, and Konosuba, as well as original movies like Ayumi Watanabe's Children of the Sea and Hiroyuki Imaishi's Promare. But the world of TV shone brightest. Every genre felt represented by some of the best work put out there. TMS released the engaging Stone Age science fiction Dr. Stone, Cloverworks premiered the suspenseful thriller Promised Neverland, Wit Studio put out the historical Viking epic Vinland Saga, even romance was well represented here, from the social combat-centered romantic comedy Kaguya-sama Love is War to the viciously dramatic coming-of-age romantic drama with furries, Beastars. That's not even getting into other classics like No Gun's Life, Carol and Tuesday, and Ascendance of a Bookworm, or even acclaimed second seasons like Mob Psycho 2. It's a stacked year where so much of the good outweighed any of the bad that happened that year. If 2020 is the shadow anime is currently living in, then 2019 is without a doubt the light that casts said shadow in the first place. Such distinction earns itself a spot on this list. Number 11, 1983.
I have a message from another time.
So remember when I said that 1981 was just the seed of 80s anime? Well, now that seed has been watered and given sunlight and blossomed into 1983. what we really think of 80s anime begins here. For one, with the money that was coming into the industry through American studios outsourcing their animation work to them, Japanese studios put that money towards ambitious cinematic outings. This is what gives us masterfully animated cutting-edge blockbusters like Yasuhiko Yoshikazu's Crusher Joe, Rintaro's Harmageddon, Osamu Dazaki's Golgo 13 The Professional, and Mori Masaki's brutal portrait of the Hiroshima bombing, Barefoot Gen. Meanwhile, on TV, new genres were being created. Yoshiyuki Tomino continued his post-Gundam hot streak with the fantasy mecha series Aura Battler Dunbine, which also indirectly created the first isekai, or Trapped in Another World anime. Piero got on the magical girl train with Creamy Mommy the Magic Angel, transforming the magical girl into an idol singer, and Toei Animation premiered their adaptation Akinikuman, the anime that helped define a lot of the battle shonen tropes while also being funny with them. Anime from all genres were very healthy this year. Sports anime got the football classic Captain Tsubasa, the romantic comedy got the very popular and very transgender Stop Hibari-kun, and mecha has Super Dimension Century Orgus and the stone cold unsentimental Real Robots series Armor Trooper Votoms. Seriously, you should watch Votoms. The big events this year, however, were two stories. One was the emergence of the home video industry as a force for delivering anime to the masses, resulting in the first true OVA series Dalos getting its big release that year, and the other was the reuniting of the Daikon 3 team to produce the shorts Daikon 4, that being the origin of the famed studio Gainax. 1983 is a historic year for the craft, but it's still largely a foundational year that will be surpassed, explaining its position. But it's clear that a list about the greatest years in anime would be incomplete without it. Number 10, 1998.
Present day. Present time.
But KB, you all shout in unison, you've referred to 1998 as the worst year in anime. How can it be on your best list, you blockhead? You got me there, but hear me out. 1998 is one of the worst years in anime because the lows were so very low. It is also one of the best because the highs were oh so very high. If anything, 1998 shows that the anime industry is an astoundingly resilient beast. Even at the lowest point of Japan's lost decade and the beginning of the awkward transition to digital, the industry was still putting out high quality work. The big title everyone remembers from this year is Shinichiro Watanabe's Cowboy Bebop, the gritty, jazz-scored space western that was actually a hit in Japan, guys, to the point that it proved the viability of satellite TV anime as an avenue for less broadcast-friendly shows. Apart from that, we also have Hideaki Anno's Kare Kano, which turned its low budget into a hidden strength. Madhouse coming out with both Cardcaptor Sakura, which revitalized the classical image of the magical girl while deepening the already layered characterization of Clamp's original manga, and Trigun, which took the space western concept to its most natural and dusty setting. And Ryutaro Nakamura released his unsettling cyberpunk psychological horror, Serial Experiments Lane, which explores the dark rabbit hole of this newfangled communications network known as the Internet. And that's not even getting into other landmarks like Outlaw Star, Kite, and the Eurobeat blasting drifter classic Initial D. But what really pushed 1998 as a top 10 contender was what happened outside of Japan. 1998 was the year 4Kids Entertainment started airing the Pokemon anime on Kids WB, and Cartoon Network's Toonami block started airing Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z. These are the events that helped anime finally break out of its super niche fandom status in the States and start being this big thing. The anime boom had finally begun in the United States. Congrats, America, you finally caught up with the rest of the world. The worst of the year does ensure that this doesn't rise any further up the list, but the best is enough to guarantee 1998 a top 10 spot.
This land is made of love and peace!
Number 9, 2012. You cannot talk about the place anime is at in this moment without mentioning 2012. It is one of those years I specifically remember feeling that the world of anime was a completely different place than it was when it started. It's another one of those years where the trends established would define the decade and beyond. The big success story of 2012 is Sword Art Online, the story of being trapped in an MMO game that kickstarted the trapped in another world boom that still persists to this very day. 2012 was also the year of Kuroko's Basket, the basketball anime that helped revitalize the sports anime genre after a period of relative dormancy, and Satelight struck gold by their adaptation of the manga Symphogear, launching a franchise that stuck mecha with magical girls together like chocolate and peanut butter. And for everything else, it was a good year in general. Science fiction got dystopian again with Production IG's Psychopaths, cute girls engaged in awesome tank battles with Actus's Girls in Panzer, the funny side of the daily lives of high school boys was uncovered with Sunrise's Daily Lives of High School Boys, A1 Pictures premiered the long-running astronaut drama Space Brothers, Studio Trigger announced its presence to the world with a YouTube anime, Inferno Cop, and the newly formed David Productions did what was once considered impossible and began a worthy adaptation of Hirohiko Araki's shonen epic, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'm surprised how dense this year was, even with titles like Wolf Children, Hyoka, Kids on the Slope, and Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions. The other big story that commanded everyone's attention, at least in America, was the return of Toonami to airwaves, helping a new generation of kids get into the strange, awesome world of late-night anime. It really goes without saying that most of the new generation of otaku can trace their roots back to this year, which is why it's number 9 on our list. Number 8, 1974. There are some years of anime out there that would have been outright criminal if I didn't put them in the top 10, let alone cut them from the list entirely. 1974 is one of those years. There's been boundary pushing and innovations up until that point, but I think 1974 is when the anime world began to really turn into something special. The landmark title of this year would be Academy Productions' adaptation of Leiji Matsumoto's space battleship Yamato. It is considered the anime that took TV stories from just small-scale adventures to grand cinematic journeys, creating the space opera genre and inspiring the likes of Gundam and Macross. Also, indirectly creating the first fanbase of die-hard adult fans who would eventually evolve into the otaku subculture. Equally important as Yamato was Heidi Girl of the Alps. The first anime production out of Nippon Animation, Heidi was part of a series called World Masterpiece Theater that aimed to adapt classic literature to anime. Not only did it prove to be a successful venture, but it also was key to the development of director Isao Takahata and animator Hayao Miyazaki. The development of the trademark lush pastoral Studio Ghibli style begins with Heidi. Beyond those two, other genres were shifting into new frontiers. Toei's Getter Robo introduced concepts like combining mechs operated by pilots with distinct and sometimes clashing personalities. Little Meg the Magical Girl introduced the concept of the magical girl having to mature over the series while also having to contend with a more dark magic based rival. And Knack Productions' Charge Man Ken showed us that bad anime can in fact sometimes be hilarious. While it might be lesser in the volume of titles, the amount of groundbreaking works that were created and developed in 1974 makes it a red letter year, as well as number 8 on our list. Number 7, 1985. When I first began crafting this list, this was one of the first years that made the shortlist. Part of that was personal bias, but also it's very easy to make the case that this is when the bubble economy's influence takes hold because 1985 in anime rules. 1985 was the year where the OVA boom really began. With titles like Area 88, Megazone 23, and Fight Exer 1, the format had a blockbuster year and showed the way forward for anime that would define the rest of the 80s. Related to that was the explosion of even more ambitious and experimental films. Films like Gizaburo Sugi's Night on the Galactic Railroad, Rintaro's Dagoro Kamui, Toyo Ashida's Vampire Hunter D, and Mamoru Oshii's Angel Egg. 1985 also saw plenty of diverse titles funded by the booming industry. Yoshiyuki Tomino made the sequel to his original Gundam, the even more acclaimed Zeta Gundam. Pierrot continued their dominance over the magical girl sphere with Magical Emmy, the Magic Star. The long-running baseball anime Touch made its debut this year, and Sunrise introduced the anime viewing world to the sexy and destructive Lovely Angels with the short-lived but incredibly impactful Dirty Pair series. In fact, it was Dirty Pair and other contemporary anime that helped the nascent anime fandom truly blossom through the growth of the American-based cartoon fantasy organization. The first anime cosplays and meetups that will soon blossom into conventions begin to appear. The American anime fandom is beginning to take root. I would have put 1985 even higher on this list if it had just had a little more on the TV side, but hey, number 7 is not bad at all for one of the creative peaks of the medium. Number 6, 2011.
I want you to make contracts with me and become magical girls!
This selection is another one of my biases coming through, because I lived through this year, and even then, I knew it was one of the greatest years for anime. Remember how I said that after 2008, people were worried that the whole industry might be in trouble? This was the year that put those fears to bed. The year kicked things off with a bang with a sleeper hit, Puella Magi Madoka Magica. It took the magical girl formula and gave it a bleak, dark twist. A twist that wasn't edgy, but rather thoughtful and tragic. The year also saw KYOTO Animation's Nichijou, the absurdist slice of life that acted as both a vehicle for comedy and the animation team's exercises. We also got Anohana, The Flower We Saw That Day, A1 Pictures' coming-of-age tearjerker about a group of childhood friends reunited by supernatural forces, and White Fox's acclaimed sci-fi thriller Steins Gate, which gave us a look at the wild world of time travel. Frankly, I could just keep listing anime titles that came out this year that make it one of the best. The Fate Stay Night prequel series Fate Zero, the superhero action comedy Tiger and Bunny, the Karuta-centered josei anime Chihaya Furu, the first Idolmaster anime, Madhouse's remake of Yoshihiro Togashi's Hunter x Hunter that was so good it has practically eclipsed the 1999 adaptation, Our Cups Runneth Over. 2011 feels like both an end and the beginning of something. It was the end in how it felt like one of the last times we had quality anime that spanned a multitude of genres throughout the entire year with little in the way of downtime. I don't think we'll ever get a year like it again, but it also marked the beginning of the next era. You don't get years like 2012, 2016, and 2019 without 2011 setting the bar high and priming the medium for anime for a big breakout that will eventually hit by decade's end. The only thing keeping 2011 from going beyond number 6 is the opposite problem 1985 had. The movie selection is just okay. Makoto Shinkai's Children Who Chase Lost Voices and Goro Miyazaki's From Up on Poppy Hill are solid features, but are easily dwarfed by what was on TV. But the stuff we have mentioned is enough to put 2011 as number 6 on our list. Before we get to the top 5, here are some more honorable mentions. And I should let you know that these were the really tough cuts. 1973 is another landmark year in the evolution of the anime art form. Toei's adaptation of Go Nagai's Cutie Honey popularized the female-led action series with a strong emphasis on sexiness. Babel 2 popularized the concept of psychic heroes. Tokyo movie Shincha's Aim for the Ace helped set the standard for female-led sports anime, while also showing off more of director Osamu Dazaki's development of style. And Eiichi Yamamoto broke new ground with the heavy and avant-garde Faustian drama Belladonna of Sadness. We even got the first on-screen appearance of Doraemon that year. Ultimately, though, it didn't make the cut because it was in between 2 years, 1972 and 74 respectively, that met my conditions more. So, sorry 1973. Yet another landmark year in the evolution of anime that just barely missed the cuts. This was the year where the 80s era in anime starts kicking into high gear. In 1984 alone, we got series such as Yoshikazu Yasuhiko's Giant Gourd, Hayao Miyazaki's last TV anime Sherlock Hounds, and Toei's adaptation of Buransen's post-apocalyptic action manga Fist of the North Star, the anime adaptation that, along with Kinnikuman, would help set the template for the modern battle shonen. The cinematic area was also abuzz with activity. That year alone saw the release of Macross Do You Remember Love, Urusei Yatsura Beautiful Dreamer, and Miyazaki's adaptation of his own manga, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Winds, with a team from Topcraft that he would later use to found Studio Ghibli 2 years later. Ultimately, it being seen more as an upward slope between the even bigger years of 1983 and 1985 caused it not to make the cuts. Man, middle child syndrome. I really had a tough time with 1999. Out of all the years, it spent the most time going on and off the list. Ultimately, bigger years pushed it out of the running. But it's a good year considering we are deep in the doldrums of the digital transition. It's the year that gave us the noir-style mecha series The Big O, the cyberspace-driven magical girl series Corrector Yui, the hyperactive satire Excel Saga, the delinquent high school comedy Great Teacher Onizuka, and Yoshiyuki Tomino's final meta-filled word on the Gundam series Turn A Gundam. It's also the year where, following in the footsteps of Pokemon, the hobby genre of anime, or hobby-ani, gets popularized through titles like Metabots, Monster Rancher, and the big one, Digimon Adventure. But, most importantly, 1999 is the year that gives us the One Piece anime. So even if 1999 just missed the list, it at least deserves some mention. Yeah, we're still in that digital doldrums period in 2001, but it was an important enough year to get at least an honorable mention. 2001 is the year where anime film came back in a major way. Satoshi Kon released his time-bending odyssey Millennium Actress, Shinichiro Watanabe revisited the world of Cowboy Bebop with giving it a big blockbuster feature, Rintaro directed the grand tribute to the works of Osamu Tezuka with the science fiction drama Metropolis, and, the crowning achievement, Hayao Miyazaki released Spirited Away to the world. The only reason it didn't make the cut is because the movies really outdid the TV this year, embarrassingly so. Comic Party, Fruits Basket, Galaxy Angel, and Digimon Tamers are all good works, but the difference is stark as hell. So now that all the honorable mentions are out of the way, let's begin our top 5. Number 5, 2002.
See, it's a brand new pair for me!
Like how 1981 began the 80s and 1992 began the 90s, 2002 is the year that really begins the 2000s era of anime in the best way. The anime industry is finally breaking out of the sloppiness of the Digipaint era. Now is the time when anime is all digital, but it looks so much better now. And with this new coat of paint, franchises are getting a new lease on life. Mobile Suit Gundam Seed brought the series back to popularity not seen since the Wing days. In fact, the genre that's getting the biggest push this year is science fiction of all moods and stripes. We have the trapped in the MMO fantasy Dot Hack Sign, the militarized mecha series Full Metal Panic, the psychological mecha series Razavon, the robotic romance Chobits, and the return of the Major with the cyberpunk Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. But don't think the other genres are getting left out. Fantasy is also getting great anime from the introspective coming-of-age slice of life Haibane Renmei, the moody noir witch hunter Robin, and the delicate ballet-inspired magical girl series Princess Tutu. And, lest we forget, this is the year where anime is introduced to the highly visible orange ninja, Naruto. But 2002 is more important to anime history because it's really when the international growth of anime culture begins to shift into next gear. Not just through the growth of American and European conventions, Spirited Away's Oscar buzz, or Japanese companies working with licensors for faster turnaround times to fuel the current anime boom, but actually how fandoms began to grow through the power of online culture. Through forums and image boards, word was able to get out faster about the latest anime as they were released each season. This not only fueled the growth of fan subculture, but also caused anime that licensors may have missed out on to get online buzz. Azumanga Daioh was one of the first anime to get popular in overseas anime culture solely through memes and popular recommendations. 2002 may feel pretty forgotten now, but I would go so far to call it the first true year of the modern anime landscape, and while other years will surpass it, it feels pertinent to remember our roots. Number 4, 1995.
Dragon Slave!
The criteria I had for selecting the top 5 of this list was that they had to be the years where you could conceivably divide anime history into pre-X year and post-X year. And 1995 is for sure one of those years. Firstly, 1995 is one of the best years for anime films since the 80s. Mamoru Oshii releases his cerebral adaptation of Masamune Shiro's cyberpunk manga Ghost in the Shell. Koji Morimoto, Tensai Okamura, and Katsuhiro Otomo wow people 3 times over with their anthology film Memories. Shinichiro Watanabe makes his grand debut with Macross Plus, and Studio Ghibli released Whisper of the Heart, the sole film by longtime animator Yoshifumi Kondo before his death 3 years later. The OVA sphere was also in good spirits, releasing the hilarious horny comedy Golden Boy, the adventurous fantasy miniseries Ruin Explorers, and Kenichi Sonoda's big blockbuster series Gunsmith Cats. But it is TV where the biggest impact is being made. E&G Films' low-budget adaptation of Hajime Kanzaka's Slayer novels still attracted loads of ratings, enough to help fuel the growing fantasy boom of the time. The Gundam franchise gets their decade-defining series in the form of the pretty boy-filled Wing anime. Fushigi Yugi pioneers the yet unborn isekai genre where the escapism is meant for young girls, and a lot of laughs are had with the comedy Super Robot series Brave of Gold Goldron. But this is all preamble to what people really know this year for. Neon Genesis Evangelion came out this year and changed the whole game. Not only did it give people an appetite for darker, more cerebral mecha series, but it brought back the Japanese otaku fandom in a big way. It brought forth a new generation of fan culture and showed a new way which anime could be watched. Reruns of Evangelion performed better in late night time slots than they did in their original primetime slots. This gave rise to the Otaku O'Clock Hour and caused more anime to be produced for that time slot. Evangelion is responsible for so many anime mentioned on this list ever seeing the light of day. Isn't that crazy? And what's even crazier is that there are 3 more years in anime that outrank a year as big as 1995.
It's so educational! You're really weird, kid.
Number 3, 1988. Unlike 2002 or 1995, 1988's high ranking on this list has little to do with its overall impact to the industry and culture. Rather, it has a lot to do with the fact that it represents a peak in the medium that may never be reached again. 1988 was the last full year of Japan's Showa era, and it feels like every facet of the anime world was taking lessons learned in that time period and took them to their biggest, grandest conclusions. The OVA world was chock full of big budget OVA projects. Among titles like Appleseed, Demon City Shinjuku, and Crying Freeman, there were titles like Hideaki Anno's Gunbuster, the large-scale mecha that spanned space and time and laid the groundwork for future Gainax projects. The Artist Collective Headgear put out the opposite of Gunbuster, Patlabor, taking the larger-than-life concept of mecha and putting them into everyday police work. And the grand historical 100-plus episode space opera Legend of the Galactic Heroes began that year. Film was even bigger. Big franchises closed out chapters with Mobile Suit Gundam Char's Counterattack and Urusei Yatsura The Final Chapter. Studio Ghibli showed their range with both Hayao Miyazaki's cozy masterpiece My Neighbor Totoro and the traumatizing Grave of the Fireflies. And Katsuhiro Otomo breaks the bank with the biggest budget anime movie to date, the adaptation of his manga Akira, the anime film that would eventually break through in America and become the defining work for global anime fans in the next decade. 1988 feels massive in the sphere of anime. It doesn't even matter that the world of TV is comparatively quiet, with the only standout titles being Sakegake Otoko Juku and the Osomatsu-kun reboot. Though that is why such a massive year can only make it to number 3. However, 1988 represents a height the anime industry has never reached before or since, and that's reason enough to put a year like it on this list. Number 2, 2006.
I'll take a potato chip and eat it.
For every 2010's entry on this list, it came with a qualifier that anime was reaching a new level of global popularity. 2020 would not be here without 2019, 2019 would not be here without 2012, etc. But none of those years would have ever gotten on here if it wasn't for 2006. Like 1988, 2006 represents a peak. It was the peak of ambitious auteur-driven anime cinema that began that decade, with Mamoru Hosada's breakthrough film The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, the graffiti-inspired urban fantasy Tekkonkinkreet, and Satoshi Kon's tragically final film, the dream-driven science fiction Paprika. TV, though, was its own summit. That year saw around 20,000 minutes of animation air on TV. To this day, the record of the amount of new series produced and aired that year still hasn't been beat. And most, if not all these series listed, have become classics. It was the year that gave us the crime action Black Lagoon, the supernatural adventure D. Gray Man, the psychological cyberpunk Ergo Proxy, the rock and roll romance Nana, the paranoid pitch black comedy Welcome to the NHK, the flesh-eating action horror Kimonozume, and the genre-defying Gintama. Visual novels became new fertile ground with adaptations of Kanon, Utare wa Rumono, Higurashi, and Fate Stay Night. Online fandoms became the biggest barometer to an anime success. The Familiar of Zero helped commandeer the budding web novel space. Death Note netted an enormous global fandom through its intrigue-driven plot and cast of evil pretty boys. And the mecha series Code Geass Lelouch the Rebellion was setting the Japanese internet abuzz weekly with speculations of how the next episode was gonna top itself. The Hellsing manga finally got its definitive adaptation with the start of the Ultimate OVA series. The anime industry delved more into international co-productions for global distribution, giving the world titles like Oban Star Racers from France and Puka from Korea. The industry didn't even stop at adapting from American cartoons, with Toei Animation's Powerpuff Girls Z. The star of the year, though, was an anime about a very strange high school girl. The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya was the engine that drove so much of the industry's growth in 2006. It would define the focus on moe cuteness in the latter half of the decade, as well as bring forth more popularity in adapting light novels. I've made my estimation as to why 2006 was such a huge year for anime. I didn't even mention all of the other anime that helped the industry flourish all in the interest of time. But it is not the best year in anime if you can believe it. That one is coming right up, and if you know your anime history, you might have guessed it right now. Let's see what it is. Number 1, 1979.
ガルマ、聞こえていたら君の生まれの不幸を呪うがいい。何？
When I first got the idea for this list many years ago, I already knew what was going to be number 1. Figuring out the rest of the list was the hard part. But the answer to the best year in anime was easy, and it never changed positions once I got this in development. I genuinely do not know where to begin with this year and its importance. I could talk about how it's the year where Yoshiyuki Tomino released Mobile Suit Gundam, the anime franchise that completely changed everything about mechs and anime in general, portraying giant robots as cold, unfeeling machines with heroes and villains on both sides of the conflict, and death means less sacrificial valor and more random chaotic chance. I could talk about Rose of Versailles, the Osamu Dezaki anime adaptation that brought the shoujo style effortlessly to the screen, giving audiences a world where female protagonists could be seen as strong, valiant heroes as well as keying others into the power of androgyny. I could talk about Hayao Miyazaki's directorial debut, The Castle of Cagliostro, the Lupin III film that imagined an older, more gallant Lupin amidst a backdrop of lush pastoral fields and ancient European castles, or Isao Takahata's Anne of Green Gables, widely considered to be the best of Nippon Animation's world masterpiece theater series. I could talk about Rintaro's majestic Galaxy Express 39 movie, or Sanrio's own Rankin Bass Christmas special Nutcracker Fantasy, or the true television debut of the children's favorite, Doraemon. But what made 1979 number one was the fact that it was the singular turning point for anime culture the world over. In Japan, it was the year where Comiket, the largest fan comics festival and incubator for modern otaku culture, had to switch to a lottery system in order to accommodate the sudden surge of registrants it was getting. And in America, the modern anime fandom was just getting started, with the airing of Space Battleship Yamato under the title of Star Blazers. This is important because it was the first serialized anime to air at all on American TV, necessitating that viewers had to tune in every week to see what happened next. This proved to be a breeding ground for fanatics of the show, who would eventually help grow the nascent anime fandom that was currently taking root in America at the time. 1979 is number one on this list because it feels like the absolute midpoint for history. Every year prior to 1979 felt like it was a lead up to it, and every year since feels like it owes its existence to what happened on that year. It is the honest mirabilis of anime. If one thing had changed, if a series like Gundam had failed to take off, if Miyazaki stayed in the world of TV instead of choosing to revisit Lupin one last time, if Westchester Corporation passed on the rights to bring the Yamato series over, how different would the current anime landscape look? Hell, if a list like this was made 5 or 10 years from now, how would it look? It's easy to think that we are in an end of history period for anime. Anime has become such a global hot property that it seems like there's nowhere else it can go. In fact, that globalism could be a curse than a boon. By now, having that incentive to make anime as globally accessible as possible, anime could lose the spark that made it so unique. There's a good chance we may never get monumentally historical years like these 25 ever again, but there's an equally good chance that maybe we will. There is no end of history as it is still being written. There could be new frontiers to explore out there that we are just simply unaware of, new ways to explore genres, new anime to be created. So why shouldn't the next 25 years just be as important as the 25 I mentioned? After all, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video or want to support this channel, please donate to my Patreon. Each dollar can give you early access to my videos as they come out, as well as keep the channel running a bit more smoothly. You can also subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, or just like this video. Either way, you'll be helping me out. That's all for now. See you for the next round of tapes.